It's now my deep honor to introduce to you David Sawyer, known as the strategic guy for a better world and co-founder of Converge.net. David Sawyer has played key roles in a variety of fields, including education reform, national service, social entrepreneurship, venture philanthropy, and environmental stewardship. Converge is a team of strategists and designers committed to social and environmental impact, helping to build collaborations and networks, taking action on issues as diverse as economic mobility, environmental conservation, human rights, and healthcare reform. David has been described as being the most thoughtful, empathetic, active listener, shepherd, and network formation guide that a group could wish for. He's also president of Context, a consulting firm with practice areas in strategy, leadership, and culture. He specializes in network strategy, design, and systems thinking. Prior to co-founding Converge, he helped launch the AmeriCorps program, received the Servant Leader Award from the National Youth Leadership Council, and served as the first executive director of the Social Venture Partners in Portland. He lives in Portland, Oregon with his cat, String Theory. Had to work that in there. And in the relatively short time I have been privileged to know him, David has become a true mentor and friend to me. He recently shared this thought on a networking site, and I think it suits our purposes here really well. We are not here to see through each other. We are here to see each other through. So please welcome David Sawyer.
Am I live? Am I heard? All right. I'm hoping that I'm being heard. So greetings, everyone. I'm David Sawyer. Thank you for those kind words, Russ. Honored to be here. Glad you're here. I am not an expert in this field and had to dig deep to find something that would be worthy of your time. And I hope these words resonate with you. I want to speak briefly today about 5 things: inner civility, listening, difference, power, and trust. Number 1, about inner civility. There is an outer civility, being courteous and polite in speech and behavior, as the dictionary describes it, in word and deed, and that's all good. And I've seen that beneath my outer civility, I can still be judgmental and, shall we say, snarky on the inside, which is humbling. That doesn't mean that discernment and good judgment are not essential components of civility. They are. But there's a fine line between clear discernment and harsh judgment, isn't there? And that is a line everyone committed to civility must walk in these difficult and polarized times. Civility is not just superficial congeniality. Outer civility is necessary, but it is not sufficient. Inner civility requires more of us. It requires a deeper understanding of others and the world, a deeper respect for the other, whether you think they deserve it or not. And I think this echoes what Dr. Anderson said about emotional civility. So, inner civility. Number 2, about listening. Real civility demands real listening, and listening is hard. You might have heard the saying that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth because it's twice as important to listen as it is to talk. Listening is a big deal. And Stephen Covey defined 5 levels of listening: ignoring, pretend listening, selective listening, attentive listening, and then empathetic listening. I had a conversation with a rather aggressive man at dinner a few years ago. He was itching for a fight. and open with a barrage of political perspectives I could not have disagreed with more. His wife looked on quietly in horror, as in, oh my God, this is going to get ugly. After resisting the temptation to stab him with my steak knife, restraint being a key characteristic of civility, I took a deep breath and followed the advice of early feminist and writer Brenda Euland and asked him one simple question. Tell me more. Tell me more. How did you come to that point of view? What shaped your perspective? Silence. And then he poured it out. And I listened, first with difficulty and then with genuine empathy and interest. I did not interrupt. And I learned that he had legitimate reasons for his perspective. And after he had said his piece, he was softer and then looked me in the eye and asked for my perspective, sincerely. I was straightforward and said something like, we don't agree on this. We never will. But boy, thank you for being so honest. I'm really grateful for that. And I meant it. Because I had listened deeply to him, he also listened deeply to me. We went from combat to conversation, from interaction to intimacy, to, shall we say, a civil exchange. Not a lot of magic in our world right now. But driving home after dinner, I realized that something magical had just happened, something I would never forget. He did not change my mind, and I doubt I changed his. But both our perspectives were broadened, and both our hearts were more open. And I realized, wow, this is how deep change happens. To listen to others in this way is not just a neutral or passive act. It's a creative act. It's generative. It actually shapes the response of others. When you are deeply listened to, different things come out of your mouth. When you listen to others deeply, different things come out of their mouths. Tell me more. Number 3, about difference. Something in the development of our ancient brains causes us to regard people who are different than us as dangerous, as the other. Who knows why? Psychologists call this enemy formation. And Robert Half was right when he said, the search for someone to blame is the search that always succeeds. As others have noted, there are countless differences among human beings on Earth. Race, class, gender, sexuality, ability, age, ethnicity, politics, religion, geography, zip code, and various combinations of the above, which we call intersectionality. History has shown us that our response to difference can all too easily dehumanize people and stir what Harvard biologist E.O. Wilson calls our Paleolithic emotions. I've been compelled by the work of Valerie Kaur, the Sikh woman, S-I-K-H, Sikh woman, who wrote the book See No Stranger. She found the extraordinary courage to visit the man in prison who had killed her beloved uncle. She basically asked one question, help me understand, tell me more. He did, and then broke down. Guilt and remorse. And they wept together. In that moment, revolutionary love was on deck. A healing took place, and holiness was in the house. Compassion is the radicalism of our time, says the Dalai Lama. Compassion is the radicalism of our time. And that's something I struggle to embody every day of my life. The perception of difference, the other, is with us. It has always been with us. Maybe it will always be with us. We are different. It is how we deal with difference that defines us. I love what Johnetta Cole former president of historically Black Spelman College, said, "We are for difference, for allowing difference, for respecting difference, for celebrating difference, until difference doesn't make any more difference." Number 4, about power. Power is a word that makes us uncomfortable, understandably so. I don't need to tell you that we live in a world of asymmetrical power and privilege, racially, economically, socially, sexually, spiritually, culturally. The book Caste by Isabel Wilkerson shines a sober light on the American caste system and how it finally boils down to power, who has it and who does not. I read a piece recently called "Why Civility Won't End Racism," which pointed out that civility alone cannot address our asymmetrical power dynamics or be a substitute for justice. Civility has way more important work to do than preserving the status quo, the structures of the prevailing caste system. The last thing any of us want is for civility to paper over injustice. It was Dr. King who said, "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic." Here's the good news. The old definition of power is changing. It's been changing for a while. You already know this. Changing from power over or power against to power for, power with, power among, and power within. Number 5, about trust. This brings us to trust, a word that gets thrown around a lot these days, including by me. Yes, trust is fundamental, but what is it actually? It's not just simple trust, the natural trust a child feels for a parent or that a pet feels for their person. It is not blind trust, the trust that we may feel for political, corporate, spiritual leaders, loved ones, in spite of the evidence. Not simple, not blind, open-eyed, mature. Ernest Hemingway said it well, the best way to find out if you can trust someone is to trust them. You'll find out soon enough. Trust, I have learned, is not simply a thing, a kind of floating substance between us. It's not a noun, not just a noun. Trust is a verb, a choice, a commitment, a kind of vow. What happens when you are deeply trusted by someone? Think about it. By a boss, mentor, child, coworker, parent, partner, friend. The effect of that trust on your spirit. Trust grows you. It makes you stronger. It brings out the best in you. It makes you want to be better. It helps you become more than you thought you could be. And what happens when you are mistrusted? One of my friends recently shared her experience of being unfairly mistreated by a colleague. The effect? Less engagement with the people in the project. More stress, less sleep, more self-doubt, less well-being, lower performance. We know from the science of mirror neurons and neurobiology that trust and mistrust have an effect not just on our psychology, but on our physiology. Trust is not a nice to have, it is a need to have. Not trust for affection. You don't have to like people to do great work with them. Not trust for agreement. Isn't it crucial to have many diverse perspectives in the room? Nope. It's trust for action, trust for impact, trust to get things done. The kind of trust that flourishes when people show up, stick around, and follow through. This kind of trust, like listening, is not passive, it's active, it's generative, it accelerates positive change, accelerates outcomes that could not have occurred otherwise. Trust actually speeds things up. Boom. Then together we break the sound barrier and move at the speed of trust. The speed of trust. That is a phrase I love. A few final words. Civility is not cordial hypocrisy. It goes far beyond politeness, as others have said. It's so crucial in our world right now because it actually allows us to have hard conversations, not for agreement, not for affection, for understanding, for change, for action. Russ has already quoted this, but just to leave you with this thought, I read something last year that had a big influence on me. I don't remember who said it. Authorship has been attributed to several people, but I will never forget these words. We are not here to see through each other. We are here to see each other through. We are not here to see through each other. We are here to see each other through. That is not anemic. That takes strength. That takes character. That takes courage. That is the beating heart of civility.
Wow. Thank you so much, David. You've given us so much to soak up and soak in. These 5 things to think about, we could take a day and concentrate on each of them. But what struck me in particular was not only accepting our differences, but creating room and appreciation for those differences. And I'm going to do a cheap, shameless plug here because it just ties in so well. I'm putting the finishing touches on a book entitled The Civility Mosaic, How Freemasonry Can Repair Our World. And in the title of that is all about how we can really get to the point where we not only accept, but truly appreciate one another's differences, and how that's not easy. It's not going to happen automatically by just putting a bunch of different people in the room. Some other aspects that really resonated with me was the importance of trust, which sounds pretty straightforward, but how to trust others and how to build trust of others in you and to be trusted, because that is the absolute foundation to our relationships. And I think the reason why incivility is prevailing so much. So thank you. Incredible thought. And the beauty of this is now we get to explore all this further.